Okay, it has been quite a while since my last update about my lithium batteries. And what the heck happened? Did they even work? Did our RV blow up? Well, no, it didn't. They actually worked awesome. But there were some good lessons and some bad lessons we learned along the way. And today I'm going to go through all of them and tell you how it went. So come on back and let's dive in.
Let me pause you there for a second, Greg. Hey everyone, I'm a close friend of Greg's and I'm here to help get this video over the finish line. In case you missed it, in the previous video, part 5 of Greg's lithium battery project, he announced that he had been diagnosed with ALS in June of 2022. And unfortunately, since then, Greg has passed away in January of 2024. But he left behind a bunch of unedited footage on his computer that I've been able to piece together to be able to bring some closure for this project. Also, Greg had a lot to say about life before he passed away that a lot of people could benefit from. So I'm going to share some of that as well as some memories of Greg towards the end of the video. Now, just as a reminder, in parts 1 through 5, Greg had put together 2 100 amp hour lithium batteries as an upgrade for his trailer project. And in part 5, he had taken them on a couple of camping trips, dry camping, and it worked great, but for some reason, battery 2 was not charging and discharging as well as battery 1. So without further delay, here is Greg ultimately troubleshooting and solving that issue.
When I'm charging and discharging, I'm consistently getting a difference in current coming out of and going into this battery compared to this battery in BMS. And that also reflects in a higher voltage in this battery versus this battery. This is my CALB battery 1 on my Xiaosheng BMS app, and this is CALB battery 2. So if this one was taking 16 amps of current when I was running the generator this weekend, this battery was only accepting 9 amps of current. And as a result, there was a voltage differential between these because this was charging more quickly than this one. So my hypothesis is that I have more resistance because of these longer cables leading to this second battery versus this first battery. What we can do to test this is to actually check the voltage across the terminals, across these connections while the batteries are charging. They're charging right now. So if there was theoretically no resistance in this cable or in this connection, when I check voltage across these terminals, I would read 0. If there's resistance in this connection, either due to a bad connection at this lug or a bad connection at that side, or something poor quality in the terminals or in the wire itself, then I would read a voltage across this connection. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to start with these short connections that come from these terminals to my battery 1, and you won't really be able to see this very well because I'll be probing down inside. But what I'm going to do is I'll start with touching the end of this connection with my positive, and then I'm actually going to touch this to the BMS itself, this contact here where the C- leads are soldered, and what we read there is a 0.002 or 2 millivolts drop. Of course, if I change those around, I'll get, okay, there we go, 0.001 actually. So what I get is I want to make sure I get in and contact the end of this lug really well. I get a 1 millivolt drop across that connection. Okay, let me try the positive. For that, I'll reach in here and touch this end of this lug, and then I'll reach in here, touch this end, and I get a 0.001 or 1 millivolt drop across this connection. So that we'll use that as our baseline since this battery is charging faster. So that would be our low resistance point of comparison. Now I'll try to do this. Let me reposition a little bit here. All right, I'll start with this positive, and this will be a little bit awkward. Hopefully I don't block this. I'll do the same thing, making sure that I'm touching the end of this lug and this lug, and I also get 1 millivolt, so that's actually not bad. Okay, that's surprising. This was actually just a cable that I cribbed from my existing installation, the original installation of my old lead acid batteries, and it's not exactly a high quality cable. So that's surprising. So we'll move on to this negative cable. Now this one's one where I've got a couple of joints in here. So a little bit of suspect stuff here. I have a 12-inch cable that I then bolted and heat shrunk to connect to my C- leads. And either I could have a bad cable, a weak connection point here, bad connection point here. Anyway, we'll go ahead and measure this. Do the same thing. I'll use one of the solder pads on my C- and the other end of the lug. Whoa! Whoa, whoa, whoa. Okay, 13 millivolts. Slightly more than 1 millivolt. So the next thing we need to do is figure out where that breakdown is. Right now it's somewhere between here and here. It's not this lug because I measured it at, it's not this junction block because I measured it at this lug, but it could be in this cable, it could be in this connection, it could be in my crimp on this lug. That's interesting. That's interesting. So I'm gonna have to peel away some of this adhesive lined heat shrink and then start checking the individual segments. So I'm gonna do that and I'll be right back with you. All right, we're back. I've exposed that connection and I've turned charging back on. And just really quick, I'll take one more reference check here just to make sure that we're still in that 1 millivolt range for the low resistance side. And we are still in the 1 millivolt range. Now to diagnose this, we'll measure the resistance, or excuse me, we'll measure the voltage from this terminal to this lug. We'll do the same thing from this pad to this lug, and then it'll give us an idea of where that resistance is, where that voltage drop is because of the resistance of the connection or the resistance of the lead. All right, so let's go here and here. All right, there, 1 millivolt, and then here to here, 1 millivolt. So now I'm going to measure on either side of this bolt. Squat. What the crap? Millivolts now. I wonder if I have something inconsistent. 3 millivolts. 1 millivolt. 1 millivolt. I wonder, do I have that is strange. Okay, I am trying my best to understand what is going on here. Take a look at this. Let me see if I can position this so you can see it. So you can see the charge current. So 14.13 amps. 14.39 amps, but did you see it drop for a second? .87 amps. Clearly we have a little bit of a odd connection here, so I want to just try flexing. It's hard to isolate this. Whatever I just did there, it popped it up. I'm hoping it's this connection. Just try a few things. I think we got something in this connection right here. I think my crimp's bad. This is one. Honestly, I was in a hurry. I had to borrow a soldering iron. My buddy wasn't home, so I went ahead and just crimped it together. And it looks like maybe that was a bad idea. So just squeezing those or moving them at a different angle, I can change it by almost an amp. There we go. All right, let's turn back on some juice, see what happens. Okay, so the converter is not fast charging right now, I think because the voltage of the batteries has crossed the threshold. It's higher than what it would normally do a bulk charge or a fast charge at, so it's just kind of trickling current in, and I've seen it do this behavior before, so I think it's normal. But this is battery 1. It now has 1.58 amps, and if we look at battery 2, all we're looking for is that it's roughly the same, and we see 1.28 amps, 1.46, 1.28, 1.37. So it's still a little lower than battery, still a little lower than battery 1. But even battery 1 is fluctuating to 1.3, 1.49. So it's, there's enough variation here that these actually could be pretty well matched now. 1.41, 1.49, 1.41. 1.37, 1.46. Okay, so they're actually, they're within fractions of an amp. Unless it gets to a bulk charge situation, it's going to be really hard for me to confirm that the variance scales with the rate of charge. It's just so all over the place right now. It's basically the differences within the margin of error, so it's not very meaningful right now. I'm going to see if I can trigger it to do bulk charge again, and if I can, then I'll revisit that. But for right now, actually, let's just do a little bit of, let's recreate our scenario here. Let's wiggle these around and see if we still get variation. Isn't that interesting? No, not really. Still too much variation. 1.28, 1.28, 1.37, 1.28. So okay, this is good. So I don't think I'm seeing the same behavior of moving the cable around resulted in a directly related reduction or increase of current. So I think we're in pretty good shape. The variation doesn't matter how I manipulate these leads. So I think we're good. So I'll throw a shrink wrap on this get rid of this little frayed edge here. It's frayed wire. Clip that off, put some heat shrink here, and then heat shrink the whole thing. And we'll button that up. Okay, I think we've got it. All right, finished putting heat shrink on this terminal end and bolting this back together. I actually ran out of extra large heat shrink, so I can't put that on the on this connection, but I'll just leave that there for right now. Did a little rerouting because I trimmed off a little bit of length from these C- leads, so I didn't want to be pulling on them. So I rerouted this cable just a little bit so that it takes a little bit of that tension off there. And then I went through both of these connections and really tightened them down. Really. And I also came over here to this main battery positive and really tightened that down as well. And the findings from that, let's see. We still don't have a bulk charge going, a fast charge going, but we're running 2.99, right around 3 amps on battery 1. And if we look at battery 2, we have pretty darn close, 3 amps. So I think we have solved this. The moral of the story, solder your wires, tighten your connections, don't take shortcuts. Even if you're pressed for time, it'll bite you.
So who am I? Well, let's see. My name's Quint. I have a pretty good sized YouTube channel with over 500,000 subscribers. But more importantly, I've been buddies with Greg since junior high, so over 30 years. I can honestly say Greg was one of the smartest people that I have ever met. In junior high, he was into paintball stuff with his family, and I was really curious about it and started asking him questions, and he was super generous with his time, started explaining how they worked. And then as I got into it, he's like, yeah, you know, you can make these modifications, change out this spring, put the hammer on a lathe and turn it down and lighten it up and all this stuff. And that just blew my mind that anybody could modify something that you bought at a store that was this ready-made design product. But Greg was just totally into that stuff and really opened up my world to all the things that you could do, that you don't just have to live with what's available to you. He explained processes, like he knew people that manufactured those paintball guns. So he explained like extrusions, which is something that I've worked with at every place that I've worked as a professional, as an engineer. Got me into engine rebuilds. He was taking mechanics classes, was always a level ahead of me, got started in that, introduced me to it, guided me through a camshaft swap on an old pickup truck to give it a better top end, and also guided me through like an engine rebuild my senior year of high school. When we graduated from high school, we both decided to pursue engineering degrees, but at different schools. And I remember Greg calling me up because he had won a design competition at his school to build, I think it was a structure, a floating structure that could support the most weight within some sort of constraints. He had won first place at his school, and the prize was a pretty nice engineering calculator, like a $100 calculator. And he called me up and said, hey, I won this thing. I already have one just like it. Would you like it? And he offered it to me, gave it to me as a gift. I could not believe it. As a starving college students, that they told him he could have turned it into the bookstore and gotten the money for it, but he instead gave it to me. And I had a crappier version that was not what the cool kids were using. So I gladly accepted, and this thing got me through engineering school, and I still use it today in my engineering videos on YouTube. I remember at one point Greg talking about the students that he went to engineering school with complaining about, oh my gosh, this math and this stuff is so hard. And he turned to me and says, Quint, it wasn't that hard, was it? Like, Yeah, it was, Greg. It was really freaking hard, which just told me that I don't think Greg knew how smart he really was. After school, Greg went on to become the VP of engineering at a firm that was, I know he wrote some software for this booking engine that had to do with the travel industry, and so he was the VP of engineering at that firm. If I try to describe any more detail on it, I know I'm going to screw it up, but yeah, very, very impressive career in what he did after school. Of course, what brought you here is Greg's YouTube channel. That's, what was his phrase? How hard could it be? The Greg base. And Greg's purpose for making that channel, he wanted people to be willing to try projects that realistically were within their grasp. So many folks look at something and they say, well, I don't know how to do that. I don't want to try, I don't want to screw it up. And man, Greg was the man when it came to projects, and everybody that knew him that way. It was like, well, I'll just call Greg and ask him how to do it. And Greg didn't necessarily know, but he had the courage to go figure it out. And this was in a day pre-YouTube. Today we can get on there and just look stuff up, like Greg's channel, and he'll show you all the little details of how to do something. But Greg has always been that way, not being intimidated by a project, and say that was the purpose of his YouTube channel, to encourage people to just try, to go for it and learn and do something, and you'll be amazed at what you can accomplish. Now, of course, there was a lot more to Greg than what you saw on YouTube. He loved the outdoors, going hiking, going snowshoeing, bike riding, playing guitar, singing. Someone told a story at his celebration of life about him singing karaoke. I think it was a Prince song of Little Red Corvette that everybody was just, they couldn't believe how well he was able to replicate Prince's voice with that falsetto. I have many fond memories of Greg playing the guitar and making up his own lyrics to whatever the song was, and everybody around him just in tears laughing at what he was doing. Greg's ALS diagnosis put him in an interesting position where he knew what the road ahead of him was going to be. He just didn't know exactly how long it was going to last, but he knew his days were numbered. And it was interesting to watch him grow from that. He was already a generous and loving person, knowing that the end was coming, and that as he was gradually losing the ability to do things that most of us consider normal, he became even more generous and more loving, and it was a beautiful thing to watch. We all learned a lot out of that process, Greg and everybody around him, but I'd say Greg, being as smart as he was, decided to document some of those learnings for the rest of us to benefit from. So he wrote a letter with some of his thoughts that I thought I'd like to share with you here. When he started down this road of dealing with ALS, Greg's pastor pointed out to him that while circumstances are sad, that love can be beautiful. And so here's Greg. I'll just read what he wrote. A few months ago, when feeling pretty overwhelmed, that conversation came to mind. Seeing only the sickness but missing the blessings was only adding to the struggle. I started writing blessings down. My family has been a blessing. What a blessing to be able to experience the love and care from so many people in a time of need. I never would have experienced that otherwise. What a blessing to have been prompted to focus on blessings in a new way instead of wants and desires alone. What a blessing to be surprised by someone unexpected showing care and investment. I wouldn't have known that friendship and character otherwise. What a blessing to be able to plan for the end and prepare my own heart, especially at a relatively young age. What a blessing to see all of the strife and conflict in the world and see it in its rightful perspective. The same struggles and arguments involving people who are just the same as they've been and still need what we need, Jesus. What a blessing to be able to tell people that I love them and to hug them. What a blessing to be able to deliberately choose to forgive people and not leave things unsaid. What a blessing to learn to receive care and set aside pride. What a blessing to have the relationship that I did with my father. How wonderful that we had an opportunity to be father and son in the way that we have been, me being grateful for him and seeking his comfort, enjoying the time as it is. What a blessing it would be for others to be moved to humble reconciliation with someone with a fractured relationship. What a blessing to take full inventory of my life, freed of any distraction from future wants. I want to say something meaningful, but I don't feel particularly wise. I have, however, come to understand a lot about the facade of control and the gravity that we give to unimportant things every day while ignoring the blessings. What an exhilarating sensation when you fill your lungs to the brim with as much air as you like. How fun is it to bag groceries? What a gift to make a genuine smile at that person you pass on the sidewalk and make their day a little brighter. How fun is it to help that stranger load a sink into their car at Home Depot? Folding clothes without a second thought, cooking dinner, drawing, singing, playing guitar, telling a joke, eating, hugging, dreaming. We have so many things to take for granted, and in that lurks hundreds of opportunities to feel joy and gratitude. And I'll say in general, a bunch of us were able to gather at Greg's house the night before he passed away. We knew the end was near, and he had gotten to the point where he wasn't able to speak very well anymore, and had gotten to the point where he just would text things on his phone so that you could read it. Man, he was got to be quite adept at texting. So I'll share what he shared with me that last evening when we were at his house, was that his accomplishments and projects really did not matter to him. It was all about time spent with friends and family. That was really all that mattered to him in those final days. Before he got sick or anything, we had for a couple of years there made the time to go get burgers together once a month at a local burger joint. And he said, boy, he really was glad that he had made the time to do that and have those conversations with me. From my side, I want to thank all of you for watching Greg's videos and watching this video. I know this channel meant a lot to Greg. It was something that we talked about before, that he wanted to be able to share some of his knowledge and experience, and he couldn't have done that without you, the viewers, tuning in and watching his videos. Obviously, Greg's family and friends are going to have the ability to watch this. So if there's something, a comment that you want to leave about maybe an effect that Greg had on you, put that in the comments, and that's the best way for his family to see it, if there's something you want them to know about what you thought of Greg. Personally, I can say that Greg had a huge influence on me at a very young age, steering me in this direction of engineering and being able to make and build anything, basically anything that you can dream up. So if you want to check out my channel, I can say every one of my videos has some little piece of Greg that contributed to me being willing to go tackle these crazy projects. So if you want to check that out, I'll put a link in the video description, so that'll link you to my channel or some of my videos. Obviously, Greg will be greatly missed, but what a cool time that we live in, that we have this internet out there, that anytime we want to go learn something from Greg, we can go watch one of those videos, and it's going to be there basically as long as we have an internet to be able to go reference. And I know I will be going back and watching some of those videos. I've already learned for my own battery projects things that, as I wasn't sure what to do, I went back and watched Greg's lithium battery projects to help get an idea of what I wanted to do on my trailer. With that, thanks for watching. There may be videos posted on this channel in the future. I can't say for sure, but this will be the last one for a while.
Until then, if you have a project you've been putting off, I hope you dive in, and if you ever doubt your capability to do it, that you ask yourself,
How hard could it be? See you soon.